And a very good afternoon to you. It's Direct Democracy on Radio Gibraltar. We're joined live in the studio by Chief Minister Fabian Picardo. Mr. Picardo, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, James.
Thanks very much for being here, for choosing Radio Gibraltar for the second of your Direct Democracies. Of course, we had you on GBC television back in February. It's your second chance under the programme to take viewer and listener callers, comments, questions, and we're going to go to the emails first of all. Let's start with an email from Michael, and of course you're just back from the UN. He says that in your speech at the UN you stated Gibraltar was dedicated to achieving the maximum possible level of self-government short of independence. What specific status does your government consider is the maximum possible level of self-government short of independence, and how and when will it go about trying to achieve this?
You see, Michael, there are a number of options under the UN Charter for decolonization. There is integration with the territory that is claiming the colony, or integration with the administering power. There's, of course, independence and free association. There is a fourth tailor-made option envisaged under the UN Charter, which assumes that the colonial people will be able to achieve a maximum level of self-government short of independence. That has never been tested. That is not a model which has as yet had international recognition in a particular format. What we are saying to the United Nations, and this is what we have been saying as a political party, as the GSLP and with the Liberal Party, since the new constitution, what is it in our new constitution that the United Nations Committee of 24 believes does not give us the maximum possible level of self-government short of independence, so that they don't recognize it as an exercise, having chosen it, not recognize it as an exercise of self-determination, choosing the fourth option. That is what we're asking the committee. We are awaiting their feedback. If they tell us that our constitution is sufficient, then that is what we will put as an exercise of self-determination, choosing the fourth option. If there are things they tell us we need to tweak, then we will go back to the United Kingdom to seek that our constitution be changed in that way in order to ensure it complies with the fourth option.
It was your first address to the UN as Chief Minister, but Gibraltar has been addressing the UN for many, many years. Did the Committee of 24 listen at all?
You see, I'd like to think that they do listen. I mean, the Committee of 24 is a strange creature. It is having always to consider the sacred trust which it is there to see through for the colonial people. But there are addresses from people like the ambassador from Spain. There was, in this instance, the president from Argentina. All of those issues have to be relevant to the committee in the way that they deal with things. The United Nations is not a place where things happen dramatically. The United Nations is not a place where things happen dramatically, unless the facts that they're dealing with are dramatic. And we always hope in Gibraltar that we don't elevate ourselves to the level of Security Council consideration, because that means that there's a war on. Absent that, in my view, the committee are listening, and it is important that we continue to plug away with our arguments in the committee and outside the committee. I know that the other political party in Gibraltar with representation in Parliament doesn't believe in attendance at the C24. Having reviewed all of Mr. Carrana's speeches to the C24, I could see his mounting frustration with the committee. Everybody's frustrated by the fact that the committee is not actually doing anything. That doesn't mean that they're not listening.
Okay, well, let's go to the first of our callers this afternoon, Ernest Olivares. Very good afternoon to you, Ms. Olivares.
Hello, good afternoon, James.
Yes, can we have your question, please, for the Chief Minister?
So, Mr. Picardo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ernest.
It has nothing to do with politics. We've had enough for the last few weeks. Due to do with the summer, which is very near now, there used to be some steps that lead to the water on the West View Park area, where the playground is, but due to the storms, they disappear. That's my question. And the suggestion is, will there be any new steps to the people in the area to swim around there? And my suggestion, why not use the north corner of the Gaza and transform it into the leisure facility area for swimming for people around here? That's my suggestion.
Okay, Mr. Olivares, many thanks for your call referring to the Westview Promenade Park, which of course was affected by the storm some time back. What's the government's position on that?
Ernest, thank you for raising that with me. I will take it up when I get back to the office, because it's not an issue that is a policy matter for the government, other than in this respect. There are a lot of vessel movements in the area, and I know that the captain of the port is very concerned for the safety of people who swim in that area. This is not a political issue for one government or of one political colour or another. It's an issue of bather safety. But I like Ernest's idea of using the north part of the pavilion, which is already an area where there is some swimming going on, involving people who swim off the Gassa area, and I will definitely look at that as soon as I get in to see whether we can somehow marry both the captain of the port's concern for safety, rightly, and people's desire to swim in that area, which is close to their residential areas.
We have an email on the allocation of houses by tender to the highest bidder. This is from Dennis. He says, as per tender documents, 10% deposit has to be paid within a short period of time when completion of the sale within 2 months of having been notified of a successful tender amount. Can you confirm that if completion has not taken place within the stipulated time, that the tender will be withdrawn and perhaps offered to the next highest bidder on the same terms?
The person dealing with that, Dennis, is Dr. Garcia, who is charged with dealing with land allocations, and he deals with things with his usual efficiency, as you can imagine. As I understand it, if you don't comply with tender regulations, then you lose the tender. If there are very good reasons why somebody may not have been able to comply, I'm sure that there is a discretion to be exercised in the right sort of cases. But other than that, failure to comply with tender obligations means that it goes to the next highest bidder.
20 minutes past 1 on Radio Gibraltar. We're taking your questions for the Chief Minister. You can call us on 200 48995. That's 200 48995. Or email directdemocracy@gbc.gi. That's directdemocracy@gbc.gi. Sorry, before we go to the next question.
May I just finish my answer? You've given me an opportunity to remind listeners that in respect of the tenders for MOD properties, we are having to sell there to the highest bidder, because the deal that was done by the previous administration required certain income from the sale of those properties in order to pay for the MOD relocation. So it's not our choice to have to sell to the highest bidder, but we have to meet certain amounts of recovery for the sale of these properties in order to be able to fund the relocations. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next of the email questions. This is from Jennifer, Chief Minister. She says, following the fishing dispute, which has aroused the interest of worldwide press, do you not find it suspicious that the opposition have kept a silence over this issue?
Well, look, it's not for me to say that anything the opposition do is suspicious or otherwise. The opposition has said what it thinks it's appropriate to say. I don't expect them to tell me as a government what we need to be saying, although they felt free to do so when they were in government and we were in opposition. What people do politically is a matter entirely for them. That's why we are in a democracy, and the electorate judge each politician on the basis of their performance when the elections come.
Whilst we wait for more callers and more emails, can I ask you on that fishing dispute, how is it going to be resolved?
Well, it is being resolved, I hope, in the right and appropriate way, in keeping with the rule of law. In other words, you look at the law of Gibraltar and you analyse what it is that people can and cannot do, and you make sure that what people do is within the law. Now, believe me, this is not about me wanting to stop Spanish fishermen from doing what they have been doing traditionally. That is not my motivation in this subject. Because Spanish fishermen, Gibraltar fishermen, when we had a hand-to-mouth economy, we also lived from these waters. I'm not talking a decade ago, I'm talking many decades and even centuries ago. And it's not about stopping people who have been fishing for their livelihoods from doing so. It's about two things which are technical, they're not about sovereignty, and they're not emotional. It's about complying with Gibraltar law, the Nature Protection Act, which can allow fishing in certain circumstances for certain purposes. And one of the things we're doing is engaging a technical group of experts to advise us on that. And B, it's about, most importantly, Gibraltar law being complied with. I think everybody knows what my concerns are about the 1999
And is the
agreement.
law being complied with? Is it being policed?
Well, as far as
because we've seen recent examples where Spanish fishermen have been fishing with nets. The law says that that is illegal, so therefore we're not enforcing the law.
Well, no, I don't agree with you, James, for this reason. In those instances where I take this opportunity, as I did on Viewpoint, to congratulate you and your colleagues at GBC for the reporting that you're doing on these issues, each of the vessels that have come in under the auspices of the paramilitary Guardia Civil to protect them have either been thwarted in their attempts to fish by the police, because the police don't just report you for doing things, they can actually stop you from doing things, or they have been reported for process by the police. Now, You might, when you see somebody committing an offence, expect that the only action that the police can take against them is to immediately arrest them. That is not the position for the Royal Gibraltar Police. A police officer may see you doing something illegal in Main Street, or riding your bike illegally, or your car at excessive speed, and they don't need to stop you and arrest you and take you to one side. They can report you for process, and that is also being done. But you look at what the position was between 1999 and 2011, when our laws were being broken with impunity, and what the position has been since we were elected in 2011 to date, and clearly the police is taking the steps it needs to take in order to enforce Gibraltar law and the Nature Protection Act.
So how is it going to be resolved? Will you consider changing the law?
I would consider changing the law. That is one of the issues I would consider, but I think that there is a long road to go before we make that decision. I think that there are issues that have to be determined in terms of the environmental protection and the sustainability of fishing stocks, which have to be determined scientifically and may require certain scientific investigations, which may include fishing to determine what the level of stocks are in order for us to be able to determine how best to resolve the matter. But our attitude is to resolve it.
What do you make of the visit by the King of Spain to Algeciras tomorrow?
Look, I am the Chief Minister of Gibraltar, James, and I don't think it is right for the Foreign Minister of Spain or anybody else in the Spanish government to have an opinion about when the royal family of Gibraltar visit Gibraltar. And therefore, all I'm going to say is going to keep my counsel on what motivates the King to visit Algeciras, but I will tell you this, I am delighted that for an area like the Campo de Gibraltar, which is now going through a very difficult time, and we all in Gibraltar, I think, have friends there, some of us have relatives there, I'm delighted that if their monarchy is going to visit their territory, it should give them a fillip and a boost, just like the visit of Prince Edward and the Countess Sophie did to Gibraltar. That's a good thing, and why should we get involved in that if we don't think they should get involved when we have royal visits?
Okay, if it's not on the visit, what about the fact that he's going to pay a visit to the Guardia Civil because they are protecting the Spanish fishermen from fishing in Gibraltar waters? Well, does it not become political?
They're not actually doing that. If you look at what's happened since those flashpoints which you with Jonathan reported on so clearly and concisely in the past couple of weeks, they actually haven't been coming in. They've been staying on their side of the median line. So look, if he wants to come and visit the people who are under his command, because remember that they are a military, paramilitary force, and he is the commander-in-chief of that military establishment, I think that's absolutely appropriate, and it's not up to me to say what he should or should not do. Look, despite the fact that we have a battle, in inverted commas, at a diplomatic level and a battle of words with Spanish diplomacy, we have to have, and it is appropriate that we should have, for the Spanish government, for the foreign ministers, for all Spanish diplomats, and for the Spanish royal family, the highest regard and respect. I might say at the United Nations that if they say one thing whilst they've got opinions showing the other, that shows an element of hypocrisy, because you're saying something that your legal opinion shows is not the case. But that doesn't mean that we don't have respect for what they do. And that's what we expect back.
Okay, Chief Minister, thank you very much for that. We'll continue after the news. You're listening to Direct Democracy on Radio Gibraltar. We'll continue to take your calls and your emails, but news coming up next.